Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Montreal, Canada for Reason to Resist on March 12th, 2026. The criminal war of aggression launched on February 28th by the Trump and Netanyahu regimes, or as we sometimes refer to them collectively, the Epstein regime, continues to go badly in just about every imaginable way for the aggressors. By all indications, it's turning into a debacle of epic proportions. Here's the scene in the past 48 hours at the airport in Dubai. Now, I've been in many airports in my life, including big ones like the airport in Dubai, but I've never seen so many damn people in one airport. Wow. Now, Dubai is home to the United Arab Emirates. For years, this gleaming modern city in the Persian Gulf has served as a veritable den of iniquity and playground for affluent Westerners looking to party in West Asian style. Well, folks, the party appears to be over, but not only for Western tourists in the United Arab Emirates. Check this out. It appears to be over as well, the party, for the colonizers who run the joint. As we've said many times, the UAE is a Mossad operation masquerading as a country. That Mossad operation has operated under the protection of the US military all these years. And as we've seen in the past 12 days, the protection of the US military doesn't count for too much. So it's not surprising that chaos has erupted, according to the Times of Israel, at the Ben Gurion airport. The Times says that, according to Channel 12, a fracas erupted and was caused by the transportation ministry telling flag carrier El Al, the Israeli national airline, overnight Sunday, Monday, that the maximum number of passengers allowed for some flights had been raised from 100 to 200, only to be lowered back to 100 in the morning because of the last-minute changes. Passengers who received notices telling them that their flights were approved were not allowed to board, and hence the chaos. Now, as many of you will know, there are numerous aircraft, commercial aircraft in operation, which accommodate a hell of a lot more than 100 or even 200 people, and can take, in excess of 500 people, the larger aircraft, many of which are in the fleet of El Al. So the question is, why is the genocidal Israeli entity limiting the number of people who can depart on these planes, irrespective of the plane's capacity, to 100 persons, or even to 200 persons for that matter? I would suggest that the government is panicking about the potential for a mass exodus from the genocidal colony. Now, today, we will share news of the most recent developments in the criminal war on Iran. Before I get into it any further, let me please remind you to like and share this video if you find it to be informative. And if you're not already a member of our rapidly expanding subscriber base, please become one and help us to expand the reach of our unapologetic resistance journalism. Now, at Ben Gurion Airport, which is the primary means by which Israelis travel in and out of the country, it's not just the severe restrictions on the number of people who can depart that is causing stress to the travelers. Here's Zionist influencer India Naftali reporting from Ben Gurion as Iranian missiles approach the area.
Guys, there's now a rocket attack here at the airport. We're to find a place to go. We have to leave our luggages here. We can't bring them into the shelter. I am right now in the airport bomb shelter. There was a missile attack from Iran affecting this area, so we need to stay in here until further notice. Okay, we are officially out. This is life during the war.
So it's not only people in the United Arab Emirates and the genocidal colony that are desperate to get out. Apparently, diplomatic staff of the United States government in Saudi Arabia are also getting out, and that's pursuant to an order of the United States State Department. This was issued on Sunday, and according to this New York Times piece, American employees of the U.S. diplomatic mission in Saudi Arabia have been told to leave the country under mandatory departure orders issued by the State Department, according to current and former U.S. officials. Now, as we've said many times, and I'm sure many of you understand perfectly well, Saudi Arabia is extraordinarily important to U.S. foreign policy, not just in the region of West Asia, but globally. There's already a considerable amount of angst amongst the people of Saudi Arabia and the political elite about the failure of the United States to protect its own military bases, its own embassy from strikes by the Iranian military. There have been reports, Tucker Carlson is one of the sources of these reports, that the Saudis arrested Mossad agents in the country who were trying to stage false flags. The Saudi Arabia Aramco refinery, a huge facility, was struck by a drone. It's believed that that too may have been a false flag. A Saudi official has complained that the U.S. has basically prioritized the protection through its air defense systems of the genocidal Israeli colony to the detriment of the Gulf autocracy allies of Washington. So this order by the U.S. State Department is not likely to improve relations between the Saudi autocracy and the Trump regime. So why all of this panic? Well, it appears that Israeli and U.S. air defenses, which were pretty porous to begin with, have largely collapsed. Last night, for example, an Iranian missile reportedly struck Herzliya north of Tel Aviv without facing any apparent resistance from Israel's air defenses. So let's watch that again. There are no air defense missiles going up in this clip. And that noise would suggest that that was a considerable blast, quite a forceful one. And it gets much worse than that, my friends. Here is a video of a massive launch of missiles and rockets by Hezbollah, the Lebanese resistance group, with reportedly more than 100 launches targeting Haifa and other areas of northern occupied Palestine. Again, another impressive blast sound. You saw in that particular video there were many interceptors in the air, apparently, but they didn't seem to be doing much, if anything, to stop the incoming missiles. Now, when I was going through the resistance channels last night, I found a particularly, I thought, revealing video of a missile strike on Haifa in northern occupied Palestine. This apparently occurred either last night or the night before. And I suggest you watch this right to the very end when you'll finally hear the sound of the blast. Notice as it's streaking towards its target, there doesn't appear to be any interceptors whatsoever going up into the sky to greet it. Now, when I posted this video on X last night, a follower of mine commented that the sound of the blast took approximately 9 seconds to reach the person filming, judging from that video. And he or she calculated the distance of that person from the blast site to be almost 4 kilometers. Imagine how powerful the blast would have to be for it to be heard that clearly and that crisply nearly 4 kilometers away. Now, here's another video of what is reportedly an Iranian missile strike on an Israeli military facility near Eilat, which is in the far south of the genocidal colony, and it is the only Red Sea port of Israel. Again, notice the absence of any interceptor missiles streaking up into the sky to greet the incoming Iranian missile. And here's another video of what is reported to be an Iranian missile strike on central Israel, either last night or the previous night. There you saw a flash, which apparently was the explosion upon impact. Now, Ted Postel is a professor emeritus at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the premier technological universities, not only in the United States, but in the world. He worked at the Pentagon as an advisor and is one of the foremost experts in the United States on missile technology and air defense. Professor Postel just gave an interview on the Rick Sanchez show in which he estimated that less than 5% of Iran's ballistic missiles are intercepted by Israel's air defenses. He called U.S. air defense systems a gigantic fraud. Those were his words. The Israeli military says that as of March 10th, Iran had launched about 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. That's about 30 ballistic missiles per day. The number, of course, could be much larger because the Israelis want to minimize the capabilities of the Iranian military and have a remarkable penchant for lying. But let's assume that the Israeli military's number is more or less accurate. So 300 ballistic missiles. If Theodore Postel is right, then at least 285 ballistic missiles struck Israel during the first 10 days of this war. And when you consider how tiny Israel is and how much of its population is concentrated in a triangle between Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Haifa, that many ballistic missiles making impact is likely to cause, relatively speaking, an extraordinary degree of damage. And that, of course, does not include damage from Iranian drones, which can reach Israel, or from non-ballistic missiles. So, for example, it's known that Iran has cruise missiles in its arsenal. And nor does that include the many missiles and drones that Hezbollah has fired into Israel and which are not ballistic in nature. Now, a few days ago, an account on X by the name of Palestinian published a helpful compilation of video of damage done to Israel during the first several days of this latest war of aggression on Iran. And here's some of what this account posted. So here, according to the poster, is video footage of damage done to Tel Aviv. So this also appears to be from a suburb of Tel Aviv. These strikes may have penetrated bunkers underground, and there was a report from an Indian journalist who, after returning from the genocidal entity a few days ago, said that he was aware that, in fact, Iranian missiles had penetrated into some of the bunkers and had even killed people who had been sheltering there. This, I think, is Bat Yam, a suburb of Tel Aviv. This I can't identify for you. In any case, this video goes on for some time. Imagine what we would be seeing if there wasn't such strict military censorship in Israel. And this is something about which even reporters from the United States have complained on air during the past 12 days. Now, this morning, Israeli authorities reported that 179 people were injured in Israel just in the past 24 hours as a result of the coordinated onslaught of Iran's missile forces and Hezbollah's missile forces. Now, who knows how high the number actually is? Israel's health ministry said the latest toll brings the number of people wounded since the start of this war of aggression to 2,745, with 85 still hospitalized. With numbers like that, which again may be a gross understatement of the real casualty figures, is it any wonder that Zionist colonists are desperately seeking to leave the colony? Now, not only is Israel being battered, but Iran's pummeling of U.S. military bases continues throughout the Persian Gulf. On March 9th at 1 a.m., a Chinese sailor captured a video of 2 Iranian ballistic missiles soaring through 6 Patriot and/or THAAD interceptors and striking the U.S. Navy base in Fujairah in the United Arab Emirates. Here's what he managed to film.
我靠，这他妈连着多少个大火箭呢？这是，我的妈呀，连着4个！哎呦，拦截，我日，靠，这拦截导弹失败了！我天，失败了！我操！哎呦，傅加拉呀，这是，砰！我靠 ，shit！ 我的天，又一个拦截导弹！ 快走！大家快看，又来了！我靠，2个拦截导弹！我靠，2个，又来一个导弹！我靠，不要脸了，没成功！我靠，又没成功！哎呦，这拦截导弹连着2个，又炸了。
Moreover, Iraqi channels just reported last night that the U.S. military base inside Erbil Airport in the north of Iraq was struck yet again. And here's video footage of the aftermath of that attack. And last night, various channels also published video of what was reported to be fuel tanks on fire at an airbase in Bahrain. Now, if the UAE didn't have enough problems, a video emerged last night of what is reported to be another Iranian precision drone strike on a gleaming tower in Dubai. And you can see there, that's one particular unit. There doesn't seem to be a material or visible damage to adjacent units, but one specific unit was pretty much obliterated. Let's look at that again. The reported target of that particular precision strike was U.S. military personnel. I don't have any information as to whether or not U.S. military personnel or others were injured or killed in that particular drone strike. Now, this morning, to drive home the point that there is no end in sight to Iran's missile and drone attacks, Iran's military published video of what it said was yet another launch of ballistic missiles, this one done during daylight. So apparently, the missile forces are not afraid to operate in clear and daylight conditions. The Iranian military said that this missile launch included the Khorramshahr 4 missiles, which have multiple warheads, reportedly up to 80 subunits. They've been used repeatedly during the past few days. Also, it includes other missiles with multiple warhead payloads as well. Khaybar Shekan missiles with 1-ton warheads, hypersonic Fatah missiles with 1-ton warheads, and one-way kamikaze drones. The Iranian military said that the targets of this morning's missile launch and drone launch included Tel Aviv, occupied Jerusalem, and U.S. bases in the Persian Gulf region. Now, Trump's demand that Iran open the Strait of Hormuz, in the meanwhile, is going nowhere. The Iranian military, in fact, just published what it said was an Iranian guided drone boat strike on a U.S. owned tanker.
انهدام نفتکش امریکایی در محدوده شمال خلیج فارس. درود بر جمهوری اسلامی ایران. رزمندگان نیروی دریایی سپاه پاسداران انقلاب اسلامی.
Now, I don't think you need to be an expert in the oil trade to know that imagery like that is going to strike the fear of the Almighty Allah in the hearts and minds of oil traders around the world, and particularly those jurisdictions that are reliant, as many are, on fossil fuel resources of West Asia. And that was just one of several commercial tankers that Iranian forces were said to have struck yesterday. Not surprisingly, this has caused a substantial spike in the price of oil. This is a report published this morning by the BBC stating that the price of oil had gone through yet again $100 a barrel after it had fallen significantly due to some fake but nonetheless reassuring remarks from the Donald. And the article from the BBC notes that the International Energy Agency on Wednesday, so that would be yesterday, said it would release a record 400 million barrels of oil into the market in an attempt to curb the economic impact of the U.S.-Israel war with Iran. And notwithstanding that record release of oil by the IEA, the price of oil tore through $100 a barrel, the ceiling of $100 a barrel again. So we may well be in the next few days well above the high point that the price of oil reached, which was about $120 since the February 28th commencement of this war of aggression. And by the way, Donald Trump had claimed that U.S. and Israeli forces had annihilated Iran's navy, but as you saw from that video of the guided boat drone strike on a U.S.-owned tanker, which caused a heck of an explosion, it does appear very much so that the Iranian Navy is capable of continuing to conduct at least some naval warfare operations in the all-important Persian Gulf. Now, to make matters worse for the Epstein regime, there is no indication whatsoever that the morale of the Iranian people is deteriorating. Here is a protest, a demonstration held by a huge number of people I could find many more videos like this. This was the 12th night in a row that Iranians took to the street to express support for their government and to demand vengeance for the crimes being committed against them. And an even bigger throng of Iranians assembled in Tehran to bid farewell to some of the victims to these satanic aggressors. And here's some footage from that gathering. In other important news, Iran's new supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, the son of the slain 86-year-old supreme leader Ali Khamenei, just delivered his first message to the nation of Iran. And here is a series of reports on X by Dropsite News about the substance of his speech. And he closed it by stating, "You people led the country, the insight and wisdom of the great nation of Iran in the recent event, along with their steadfastness, courage, and presence, made friends admire and enemies astonished. It was you, the people, who led the country and guaranteed its power." I think there's a great deal of truth to those sentiments. Now, with so much anger against the aggressors and so much leverage over the US and the Israelis, particularly in the economic sphere, it should be no surprise that Iran continues to reject overtures from the Trump regime for a ceasefire. And here you can see Iran Arabic IR on X quoting a senior Iranian political official. This is a translation by Grok. "Trump is seeking through intermediaries to connect with us and Washington to end the war, but at the same time, he claims the opposite. Trump states in interviews with American media that there's no specific timeline for ending the war, which contradicts the messages he's sending to us. This American contradiction reflects a state of chaos and deep crisis that Trump is going through, where he has found himself in a major predicament without possessing a clear path out of this quagmire. Tehran has firmly informed the intermediaries that it is not receiving any message from the American side and will not respond to it. Iran has a firm and resolute stance with a strategic objective, which is not to respond to any initiative until the Zionist entity retreats and completely collapses after all the crimes it has committed in the region and the chaos it has caused to the world." Now, a statement by the Iranian president a few days ago, Masoud Pezeshkian, was somewhat more, shall we say, diplomatic, but nonetheless resolute in its rejection of any sort of unconditional ceasefire. On X, his account stated, "Talking to leaders of Russia and Pakistan, I reaffirmed Iran's commitment to peace in the region. The only way to end this war, ignited by the Zionist regime and US, is recognizing Iran's legitimate rights, payment of reparations, and firm international guarantees against future aggression." That, by the way, is a very modest set of demands, although it's probably far beyond what the Israelis or the Americans would be prepared to accept at this stage. The idea that they're going to pay reparations, even though that's entirely justified and obligatory, both as a moral matter and as a legal matter, because this was a criminal war of aggression. There's no indication, despite the obligation to provide compensation to Iran, that they're willing to provide even a penny of it. There's this rather open-ended phrase being employed by President Pezeshkian here about Iran's legitimate rights and their recognition. Well, what are Iran's legitimate rights? Iran does have, as a matter of international law, the right to enrich uranium for civilian purposes. Iran does have the right, under international law, to maintain a sizable arsenal of ballistic conventional missiles and drones. And these are, of course, things that the United States and Israel have demanded be taken from Iran: the right to enrich uranium, the right to have any nuclear program at all. They've even demanded that that be eliminated in Iran. And they certainly have no evident willingness to tolerate Iran's ballistic missile program, particularly after they've had a can of whoop-ass opened up on them twice since June of last year by the aerospatial forces of the Iranian military. And then finally, the third element of the demand here, conditions for ending this war: firm international guarantees against future aggression. Well, it's hard to know exactly what might satisfy the government of Iran in that particular matter or aspect, because the Trump regime and the Netanyahu regime have demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt that they can't be trusted as far as you can throw them, and that they regard ceasefire agreements that they enter into as having no more value than toilet paper. In fact, they treat toilet paper more respectfully than they treat their ceasefire agreements. So in all likelihood, it is well understood by the political and military leadership of Iran, which by all indications has become much more hardline since this second war began, that you can't rely upon the United States or Israel to respect their agreements. So again, I'm not sure exactly what they have in mind here by firm international guarantees. Maybe there's some kind of third-party participation in an agreement which would provide some kind of reliable guarantee of performance of their obligations under a ceasefire agreement by the United States and Israel. Now, the Trump and Netanyahu regimes are not only losing on the battlefield and in the economic realm, particularly in the economic realm, they're also losing in the court of public opinion. The intrepid Dropsite News had the foresight to conduct a poll along with Zeteo and Data for Progress, and the poll asked Americans whether they believed that the Trump regime launched this war of aggression in whole or in part to cover up or distract people from the Epstein scandal. And you can see there that 52% of Americans, a majority of Americans, believe that Trump was at least partly motivated to take military action against Iran in order to distract from the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And this is all voters, by the way, 52%. 8% didn't know. 40% said he was not motivated at all. I don't know what Kool-Aid those people are drinking, but apparently they need to stop watching Fox News. Now, the results were heavily skewed by Democratic partisanship. Well, I should say by the views of Democrats. 81% of them believe that the Trump regime's desire to distract from the Epstein scandal was at least a factor in his deciding to start the war. Only 14% disagreed. I would imagine that's the extreme Zionist wing of the Democratic Party. Independents, 52%, a majority said they thought that that was a factor. 40% no. So the independent results and third-party results mirrored the overall result for the nation. And even a little more than a quarter of Republicans believe that that was a factor. 10% didn't know, 64% said that they thought it wasn't a factor at all. Now, in circumstances such as these, you'd think that the Netanyahu regime would lie low and avoid arousing any controversy about sex crimes involving Israelis. But you would be wrong about that. It was just announced, again, in this post is from Dropsite News, that the Israeli military has dropped the indictment against soldiers videotaped sexually abusing Palestinian detainee at the notorious Israeli hellhole Sde Diamond prison. Israel's military advocate General Itay Ophir canceled the indictment against 5 IDF soldiers, citing evidentiary and procedural problems, according to the Jerusalem Post. The soldiers were accused of sexually assaulting a Palestinian detainee at the facility, including sodomizing him with a sharp object. Medical reports found the detainees suffered fractured ribs, chest trauma, and a perforated rectum that required surgery. The Israeli soldiers claimed they were acting in self-defense. Prosecutors said the case was complicated after video of the abuse was leaked by the former military advocate who later resigned and after the detainee was released back to Gaza before testifying. Defense Minister Israel Katz welcomed the decision. He welcomed the decision, this psychopath, and called the case a, quote, blood libel against IDF soldiers. He added that, quote, the role of the IDF's legal system is to protect and safeguard IDF soldiers who engage heroically in war. Oh, so it's not to protect in any way, shape, or form the unarmed detainees and civilians that are routinely massacred, tortured, and terrorized by these people. It's strictly for the protection of the baby killers, according to Israel Katz. Now, you may recall that there were protests held by these lunatics, by civilians in Israel against the indictment, against the detention of these criminals. As I said, all of this is on video, and the medical evidence amply supports what we all were able to see in that video. And we're now being told, apparently, although they don't spell this out in this particular post, that the leaking of the video by the former attorney general or military advocate somehow compromised the rights of these vicious terrorists. Now, if that in fact is true as a matter of Israeli law, and I don't know, that would raise a question in my mind as to whether or not the former military advocate intentionally leaked the video in order to give the lawyers for these criminal soldiers a procedural justification for bringing an end to the prosecution of their clients. Again, this is speculation on my part, but that's certainly a possibility that I think ought to be contemplated. Now, despite all the setbacks suffered by the Epstein regime over the past 12 days, there's no indication so far that it will make any meaningful concessions to the victims of its aggression. This means almost certainly and tragically that this war will continue to escalate with potentially catastrophic consequences for the global economy. So if you haven't stocked up on necessities yet, my friends, I suggest that you do so as soon as possible. Now, I'd like to conclude this report with a couple of questions. First, what the hell happened to the USS Gerald Ford, that massive aircraft carrier, the crown jewel of the United States Navy? You may recall that it was sent to the Eastern Mediterranean in the lead up to this war of aggression and had to make a pit stop on the southern coast of Greece at the U.S. naval base, Suda Bay, because reportedly it was experiencing huge problems with backed up toilets. And there were, reports that the sailors on board had to wait as much as 45 minutes to answer the call of nature. And there were also reports that the problem arose from sailors stuffing T-shirts and other debris into the toilets and clogging them up. There was some speculation that they were doing this because they were sick and tired of being at sea. They wanted to go home and they didn't want to participate in this latest misadventure in the region of West Asia. So after it left Suda Bay, it sailed towards the genocidal colony, the USS Gerald Ford, stayed there for a few days, and then it was ordered to enter the Red Sea. And up until this morning, the last we had heard of it, this question actually occurred to me last night, and I wasn't able to find any update last night beyond the reports that it had entered the Red Sea through the Suez Canal a few days ago. And so this is a major, major military asset. There was so much brouhaha around its participation and the problems it encountered as it approached the Eastern Mediterranean that it was quite curious that we hadn't heard anything about it. Well, today, a report came out that it has experienced yet another mysterious problem. A laundry fire was reported aboard the USS Gerald Ford. I found this this morning, just minutes before beginning this report. as I say, after finding nothing recent about the whereabouts of this thing. And this report says that the fire broke out on March 12th, so that would be today, while the ship was operating in the Red Sea, according to U.S. Central Command. Officials said the fire started in the ship's main laundry spaces. The incident was not related to combat operations and has since been contained. So apparently they're able to wage war at the highest levels, but they can't manage a laundry room and the toilet system. Quite apart from this rather surprising news about another non-combat related problem on board this vessel, I would be interested in knowing exactly where it is. Is it heading south towards Yemen, where it would undoubtedly encounter the forces of Ansar Allah and risk being severely damaged, if not sunk altogether? Or is it just kind of lingering up in the northern Red Sea, waiting for further orders? Or is it just keeping a discrete distance from the battle zone while it's dealing with other problems? And is it being kept there because the political leadership in the United States doesn't want the humiliation of publicly recalling the vessel and bringing it back to U.S. shores? I don't know what the answers are to any of those questions, but it is, to my mind, quite odd, to put it mildly, that this thing seems to be doing pretty much nothing in the Red Sea at this particular point in the conflict. Now, in the interim, one might also ask, what is happening with Ansar Allah, the resistance movement in the Red Sea region? Because for the moment, it doesn't appear to have participated in any of the missile or drone attacks on Israel, nor has it launched, to my knowledge, any attacks on Red Sea shipping since the war began on February 28th. Now, Ansar Allah did put out a statement and has been putting out statements regularly on resistance Telegram channels. This one was issued on March 10th, was the most recent one I could find. The headline being, "Leader of Yemen's Ansar Allah movement affirms solidarity with Iran's new supreme leader against the Zionist satanic plan, hints at possible Houthi military involvement in the conflict." And if you go down to the bottom of this screenshot, I'm reading the last two paragraphs, quote, "As we affirm our support and solidarity with the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Muslim Iranian people in the face of American and Israeli aggression and tyranny, aimed at implementing the Zionist satanic plan under the title of changing the Middle East and empowering Greater Israel, we affirm the great steadfastness and effective resistance of the Islamic Republic against aggression and tyranny will result in victory." This is the leader of Ansar Allah, Abdul Malik Badr al-Din al-Houthi. He then is quoted as citing a Quranic verse, quote, "And it was an obligation upon us to help the believers. O you who have believed, if you support Allah, he will support you and make your foothold firm." And this article then observes that with these citations, al-Houthi appears to be hinting that his group may get militarily involved in the conflict to support Iran. I, for my part, have no doubt that it will do that if it is called upon by the Iranian military and political leadership to participate. I suspect what's going on is that the forces of Ansar Allah and the opportunity to resume attacks on complicit Red Sea shipping are being held in reserve by the resistance so that they will have a further rung up the escalation ladder that they can go to in the event that this thing does continue to escalate. They're slowly, incrementally increasing the military and economic pressure on the United States and Israel, not only to end the attacks on the Islamic Republic, but to meet the core demands of the Iranian leadership. And so I suspect that at some point, perhaps very soon, we will see Ansar Allah participate in a robust manner. I hope that that won't be necessary, but really based upon its heroic resistance up until now, I don't think anybody should doubt the willingness and ability of the military forces of Ansar Allah to provide significant assistance to the resistance at this critical time. And the final question I want to ask before signing off today is, where the hell is the war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu? The social media have been flooded in recent days with questions and rumors as to whether the war criminal is dead. People are also asking whether his brother Ido was killed in an Iranian missile strike. And there are also rumors circulating of the death of Itamar Ben-Gvir, the national security minister of the genocidal entity. All three of them, it has been speculated, were subjected to Iranian missile attacks at their homes. And I've seen reports on social media that the Israeli media have acknowledged that Ben-Gvir was injured in a car accident. I myself have not seen those reports by the Israeli media. What I have seen are references to them on social media. So I can't even confirm that they're reporting that much. I have no idea whether any of these men has been wounded or killed, whether in an Iranian missile or drone attack or an attack by Hezbollah or for any other reason. But apparently Netanyahu has not appeared in any video for nearly 3 days. No photos have been published for almost 4 days of him. And before this gap, according to Mint Press, which published this article up on the screen, at least one video, sometimes up to 3, were released daily. And all recent statements attributed to Netanyahu have been text-based. Whether or not this man has suffered the fate which he richly deserves remains to be seen. But whether he's alive or not, I have no doubt that he is cowering in a corner somewhere, wondering how the hell he's going to get himself out of the mess that he did so much to create. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Montreal, Canada on March 12th, 2026.